the ways we can teach our children how to regulate their emotions and enhance emotional intelligence is by explaining to them what exactly happens in their brain. And I want to teach you the hand model of the brain. So with me, place your thumb into the middle of your palm and place your fingers over top like this. This is a tangible way to explain to children what's happening inside. Dr. Daniel Siegel, who's a neuroscientist, developed this hand model of the brain, and he says that if we can see what's happening in the brain, then we can change what the brain does. And that is such a powerful lesson to teach our children. So let's take a closer look at what happens inside. So this wrist part represents the spinal cord, and the base of the palm here is the brain stem and the limbic area, which together work to regulate emotions in a flight, fight, or freeze response. Then we get to the higher part of our brain, which is our cortex, and allows us to perceive our outside world and to think and reason with it. Then we get to our prefrontal cortex, and some of you hear me talk about this area as the frontal lobe, and that regulates these subcortical areas, especially the emotion region and our brain stem. So this is a really important area of our brain because it's responsible to regulate emotions. We want to highlight this area and the emotion center area for our children. So if there's two areas you're just going to talk about, focus on the amygdala or the emotion center area and the frontal lobe or the prefrontal cortex. And this is so important to teach kids because life happens, and when we get triggered because we're tired or somebody's pushed our buttons, then we flip our lid. A lot of us flip our lids. This is so important to teach children this part. So rather than being balanced and connected, attuned in the moment, we end up flipping our lids. We become inflexible and disconnected. We lose empathy, and sometimes we lose even our moral reasoning and act in ways that are harmful and hurtful. But even when lids are flipped, we can teach children how to bring it back through this higher road and make a repair attempt or catch the emotions before they explode or flip open. We can teach kids that when emotions are firing up in this limbic area, specifically the amygdala part of the brain, that they're trying to override this prefrontal cortex and make their lids flip. We also want to teach children to catch it and tune into ways that can help calm emotions, such as taking a break, asking for a hug, visiting their calm down corner, or going in a timeout or a time in, whatever language you use. We can teach the hand model of the brain and use it as a practical tool to help children understand and make sense what's going on in their brain. It's also quite empowering to teach children the connection between their behavior and what's happening in their body. So the two main areas that you want to focus on is the amygdala or the limbic center. It's the same thing, the amygdala is in the limbic center. That's the emotion center, and the calming, the thinking part of the brain, which is responsible for forward thinking, moral reasoning, impulse control, and lots of other good things. Now, I need to tell you guys that the frontal lobe doesn't fully mature until a person's 30s. Doesn't mean that young children can't handle this information. The frontal lobe actually has big growth underway even within the first 2 years of a child's life. Then it spikes in growth during the adolescent times when the prefrontal cortex is developing even more network connections with the parts of the brain involving emotional reactivity. Does trauma play a part? Yes. Traumatic experiences and adversity does influence the brain and its growth and development. However, research also reveals to us that the brain has neuroplasticity, that it's basically able to reshape and rewire itself as it's healing and can grow and change dramatically. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. Please share with me any comments that you have. Send me videos of you explaining the hand model of the brain to your child. This will get us one step closer to teaching and enhancing emotional intelligence for your kids.